And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby 411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata. And this will be a fun video. It's basically a video to open up some communication with you, the rugby fans, as well as because it's about USA Rugby, and the purpose of this whole YouTube channel has been about increasing the knowledge of rugby here in the United States. And USA Rugby has been the topic of conversation for the past week and a half. And there's just a lot of rumors going around. I'm not really big about discussing rumors because I don't want this channel to be that. But there are some topics that are very interesting and things that I know some people who are not very familiar with rugby might just be hearing things and kind of wondering what is all the hoopaloo about with USA Rugby. Because again, we are being talked about, which is not a bad thing. Okay, so let's talk about USA Rugby rumors. Two topics to talk about: USA team playing in Super Rugby and USA Eagles possibly playing in Six Nations. Yeah, the second one definitely has been piquing a lot of people's curiosity. We'll talk about that, but let's talk about the Super Rugby one first because I feel that one we can kind of nip in the bud a little bit, and I'll give my reasons why. But again, all these things are topics of conversation. I would love to hear what your thoughts are because I know there's a lot of international fans that follow my videos, and these are two competitions that are international competitions, take place around the world. Both of them very prestigious competitions. One of them, in particular, Six Nations, is arguably, like it or you don't like it, the biggest international competition outside of the World Cup. Again, I know a lot of Southern Hemisphere teams like South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand are rolling their eyes on that one. But just go with me on this one. So let's talk about the Super Rugby one first. So Super Rugby, or Super Rugby Pacifica as it's called nowadays, is a international competition that primarily deals now with teams that are in the Southern Hemisphere or the Pacific Island regions. You gotta, if you're, again, for those who aren't really familiar with rugby, the rugby world is divided technically into two hemispheres. You have the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. For whatever reason, both hemispheres don't like each other. Very similar to the North and South here in the United States with the Civil War and everything. Two different philosophies. And it's funny because both these competitions kind of represent both hemispheres. Super Rugby represents the Southern Hemisphere, at least right now, and Six Nations represents the Northern Hemisphere. Now, Super Rugby primarily composes of competition with teams from Australia, New Zealand. One of them recently established a couple years ago, the Fijian Druas, who, if you've been following RFCLA had a scrimmage exhibition game with the Fijian Drua team, and then one that's called Moana Pacifica, which basically is open to any player who has a Pacific Island heritage or representing one of the Pacific Island nations like Samoa, Tonga, Fiji. There are some Australian, New Zealand players as well, but basically kind of a hodgepodge of those players. But it is a team primarily, again, to kind of promote competition for Samoan, Tongan, and Fijian players who aren't able to be on the Fijian Drua teams or the Australian, New Zealand team. Ultimately, what Super Rugby is very similar to Major League Rugby. It's to give these nations, club teams, a high level of competition, and ultimately preparing their national players to compete on the Rugby World Cup circuit, on the Rugby World Cup scene. So, recently there's been rumors, and I don't know how valid it is, but there's been talk that maybe a USA team might join Super Rugby. It's not like that hasn't happened. Super Rugby used to have teams that were from South Africa, and they actually had a team from Japan called the Sunwolves, which a lot of USA Eagles players, including Mr. America himself, has played. Todd Clever has played on the Sunwolves team, so they were a prominent team from Japan, no longer around anymore. So basically, there's thought about putting a USA squad that will compete in Super Rugby. Now, a couple of things with the issue with this. This isn't the first time that a USA team has competed in a Super Rugby type competition. For some of you who don't know, there is also a Super Rugby competition in South America called Super Rugby Americas. And that basically composes of teams that represent Uruguay, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, Portugal. Not Portugal, Colombia, Brazil, and Uruguay. And those are basically, again, teams that are kind of preparing their national players to compete on a national level. And very similar to Super Rugby Pacifica. So there actually was a USA team represented there, the America Raptors. They competed for 2 years before unfortunately folding. Reason why they competed only 2 years is because Super Rugby Americas takes place at the same time as Major League Rugby. So a lot of your USA Eagle players, or technically your top-notch players, are already competing in Major League Rugby. So that America rugby team, that America's Raptors team, was kind of composed of, no disrespect to them, not necessarily top tier players. Really, what it was a lot of young USA Eagle eligible players that were given a shot to compete at an international level with the South American circuit. Now, coincidentally, that team shut down. The Anthem Rugby Carolina team popped up because basically that team became Anthem. Anthem was that team that now is competing in Major League Rugby. So that being said, if we have another team going over to Super Rugby Pacifica, whether it's going to be Anthem, which doesn't make sense because Anthem will have to compete at the same time in Major League Rugby, you basically face the same problem that we had with the Super Rugby Americas competition. And by the way, the American Raptors were not very successful in the competition. They finished sixth place out of 7 teams both times. I think only winning 2 games one season, 3 games another. Because again, you're dealing with a lot of younger players that have never really had international seasoning against players that represent their national teams. Like I said, you have your Uruguayan players, you have the Brazilian players. Granted, Argentina actually has a team in a different competition, but they do have their secondary players playing in this competition as well. So a lot of players that already have top-notch competition level experience playing against very young American players. So what's to say that's not going to be the same situation? We just move the team to a different Super Rugby competition. Again, not saying it's a horrible idea. I just don't feel it'd be a very successful idea. No different than the success we saw in Super Rugby Americas. And you know how America is. If we don't see results, the money's not going to be in it, and the team will face the same result as the American Raptors did, where it will fold. So I don't think, as much as there's rumors on this one, I don't feel it's going to be very valid because past experience has shown that it just doesn't work. Again, maybe if the Super Rugby Pacifica competition happened at a different time of the year, not overlapping with Major League Rugby, maybe we would field a more competent team. But as it is right now, I don't see this rumor happening. But it has been popping up. Now, the bigger rumor. USA Eagles, or USA, basically our national American team, playing in the very prestigious Six Nations. Yes, it is an actual story that is happening. It's rumor, but I mean, how valid is this going to happen? That remains to be seen. But it is a talk. There is talk that is actually happening because it's been proven in an interview with Bill Gorin, who is the chief executive of USA Rugby. He has talked with Six Nations about, maybe having an American team in Six Nations. Now, will that actually happen? Chances of that very, very slim. But could it happen? Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, for those who don't know, Six Nations is the longest international rugby competition, primarily through Six Nations. You have England, Scotland, Ireland, Italy, France, and I'm blanking on the last, and Wales. Okay, I'm blanking on them because they haven't been doing very well. I'm sorry, Wales. No disrespect, but those are the Six Nations. Now, some people may not know that Six Nations wasn't always Six Nations. Originally, it was technically 4 countries, became 5. From 1946 to 1999, it's been 5 nations, and then just at the turn of the century, they just added Italy, which that itself was pretty controversial. A lot of people did not want Italy in the competition. Italy basically became what was considered a top tier nation because of their how they fared in the Rugby World Cup at that time, and so they were invited into the Six Nations competition. Ultimately, what the Six Nations is it allows these teams to compete with each other on a yearly basis, top competition teams facing against each other all the time, and basically, as they say, iron sharpens iron. You have these teams facing against each other on a yearly basis. Competition raises everybody's level of caliber. They then get ready for the Rugby World Cup and they perform very well there. The Six Nations is something that is the lifeblood of teams like England, Scotland, Ireland, France, who's been doing very, very well lately as well. And the goal was that obviously it would elevate Italy as well. Unfortunately, since Italy has joined in the Six Nations, they have been ranked as the wooden spoon, or if you know Super Brew, that means the worst team 18 out of the 26 years they've been competing. But that being said, last couple years they haven't been too bad. Last year in 2024 was their best finish ever, where they won 2 games, lost 2, and drew 1. So there has been improvement with Italy because of their time in the Six Nations. It's took them about 25 years to do it, but there has been progress. So who's to say that if USA just happened to join the Six Nations, that even though they would be very, very, very much outclassed by those teams, who's to say that they won't benefit from consistently on a yearly basis facing against top-notch competition? You got to remember, when you do these international test matches during the fall and during the summer, especially when it's like college football. When you're a lower ranked team, you're begging to play other teams. Higher ranked tier teams, there's no benefit them to play a lower ranked team because if you lose, if you just happen to lose, you have a bad day, you drop in the rankings. But if you play against top tier teams, even if you lose, just like with my power rankings, you don't lose, you don't drop very much. So where's the benefits to play a lower ranked team? There's more risk, right? So when a top ranked team plays against a lower ranked team, it's really It's really by the sincerity of that top ranked team. You're giving the lower ranked team a gift. Now, if you are in a competition like the Six Nations, you'll always be playing. It's not like you have to beg. It's going to happen all the time. And that's why for a long time, rugby fans have been begging that the Six Nations, a competition that's been pretty much closed to those 6 teams, has some sort of regulation process, like a lot of competitions do, like the Rugby World Cup. If you don't stay on the top and you lose, you can get bounced out of the competition, replaced by a lower ranked team that somehow jumps themselves in, because usually there's a secondary competition. Top person of that gets to jump up, lower ranked team gets to drop down. Six Nations has been fighting that because they don't want to lose the gold competition that they have here. So again, if USA is able to get into the Six Nations, that would be huge for USA. Logistics, travel wise, I don't know how great it is. It's definitely going to be travel, but I mean, it would be a big thing for USA. But again, would the other nations and would the rest of the world like the fact that USA somehow got into this prestigious competition? Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. Again, is you never say never. No one thought Italy was supposed to be there, and they've been there now for the last 20 some years. Again, who's to say that USA can't be the 7th nation in the competition? But again, I think the chances of that are very slim. What is more likely going to happen is the other part of this talk is that not only is there talk about the US Eagles competing in the Six Nations, but there's also talk about some of these Six Nation games being hosted in America. Now that I can definitely think could be a possibility because right now, again, American rugby in America specifically, has been a real big talking point. Not only, and I've been spouting this since day one, not only we're going to be hosting the Rugby World Cup in 31 for the men, 33 for the women's, which could be huge. Recently, rugby in America has found a really big voice in the media and social media. The women's placing bronze in the Olympics in 2024. Just recently, we had the Rugby Sevens LA. 27,000 people over the weekend. It's the biggest attendance we've had in LA since we started. So the groundswell of popularity for rugby has risen. The USA women just recently had their biggest turnout in competition in Kansas City, 17,000 people. I mean, there is the audience is being found in USA, and World Rugby recognizes that. That's why they allow both the women and men to be hosting Rugby World Cups in 31 and 33, because they know there is a possibility that when that fire is lit, it is going to be huge for not only USA but rugby in general. And if you look at the numbers, recently, Fiji and New Zealand had a game in San Diego last year at Snapdragon Stadium, sold out 30,000 people. You look at the biggest games that have been played in America. The USA hosted New Zealand in 2014. Granted, it was 10 years ago. 61,500 people packed Soldier Field in Chicago. That was done again 2 years later, and it didn't even involve USA. It was Ireland versus New Zealand. 61,500 people. In 2017, you had USA versus Ireland, 22,000 people in the Red Bull Arena in New York. 2021, USA hosted New Zealand, 39,720 people at the FedEx Field in DC. So there is an audience for rugby, especially international rugby too. Teams that you don't normally see, there's a lot, people forget, we are a nation made out of immigrants. There are a lot of immigrants from from the Six Nations that are in America or willing to come to America. That's why, again, Rugby Sevens, it wasn't all American fans. I can tell you personally because I was there doing PA work on the second pitch when we had the Kenyans. We had that stadium, no disrespect to RFCLA, our first year, we never had it packed as big as that stadium was. It was overflowing with people. Easily over 2,000 people, maybe 3,000 people were packed. And most of them were Kenyan fans. So fans will travel to the United States from around the world. There is an audience for rugby there. And again, I feel Six Nations know this. I feel that's a great way to promote the sport. It's a great way to get interest in the United States. I don't know if USA will play in Six Nations. I kind of don't think that's going to happen, but I definitely can see a England versus Scotland game, an England versus Ireland game here in the United States. Again, Ireland versus New Zealand, 61,500 people. You know, they're going to have a rematch coming up later this year, and that's going to be huge as well. Scotland recently visited the United States. That was a big turnout. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of interest in doing games in the United States. England will be coming back to the U.S. Later this year in the summer. First time they'll be back in the United States since 2001 when they played in San Francisco. I think that game in DC is going to be huge as well. So yeah, I think more than likely the chance is of a Six Nation game or two being played in the United States. Again, USA Eagles playing in Six Nations, I just don't see it happening. Also, why I don't think it's going to happen is just the logistics of it. Six Nations takes place during February. I'm sorry, during the beginning of January until the middle of March. That unfortunately runs into Major League Rugby season. So already, you already have the issues that we're having right now with the Storm Week, where we're trying really hard not to lose our international players to play in other competitions and just stay in Major League Rugby. That's why we have shortened the season a little bit, because we have to play during the summer. If we have to push the season back a couple weeks, there's no way we'd be able to get ready for the international competitions in the summer. You'd have to lose Eagles players sometime during the season if we have a USA team in Six Nations. Again, not like that doesn't happen with England, because England has their Premiership and their URC teams playing during that time. So during Six Nations, they do lose their players. It's a very common practice. It's just not something American fans are used to with our American sports, because we don't have international competition. You don't have players in Major League Baseball or in the National Football League having to go, okay, we can't play right now because we got to go elsewhere to play just doesn't happen. But rugby, it does. So I just don't feel like that's something that Major League Rugby wants to face right now. Could they face it in the future? Maybe. I mean, in the end, I feel if there's a possibility being in Six Nations, USA would be kind of foolish not to do it because it will benefit them in the long run. Facing England, facing France, facing Ireland on a consistent basis, huge. That would just make USA a better team, but I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Again, I think it's more likely that there will be a Six Nations game or two hosted in America because, as I mentioned with the numbers, the money is there. There is a huge possibility for that to happen. But again, overall, it's great to have USA Rugby be on the tips of everybody's tongues because that just shows you how much interest there is in rugby in the United States. And I'm here for that. I really am. And that's why I made this channel. That's why I'm psyched about it. I can't wait for the Rugby World Cup, men and women's, because I really truly believe, just like what happened with soccer when there was the World Cup in soccer back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it increased the popularity of soccer tenfold, hundredfold. That will be the same with rugby, I guarantee you. Plus, too, we also have the Olympics coming in 2028. So, of course, rugby sevens is an Olympic sport. Was huge when the women made the bronze. If the women and the men can somehow do something in the 2028 Olympics in LA, huge. Again, the popularity will be immense. So, I'm here for it, guys. That's basically what it comes down to. I don't know how valid these rumors are, especially don't think the Super Rugby rumor is anything, but, maybe a little bit something with the Six Nation ones. But hey, again, let me know what you think in the comments. I know we have a lot of international fans. Do you want to see a USA team in Super Rugby Pacifica? For those of you who watch that, do you want to see the United States in Six Nations? I really don't think the rest of the world wants that to happen, but, I mean, it's not like it would be a huge... It wouldn't be a bad thing for the U.S. It would be rough for at least a decade or two, but in the long run, I feel USA would benefit having a team in being able to compete in Six Nations. But I just don't think that's gonna happen. So again, let me know what you think about it. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope this video gets a lot of traction because it's some interesting talking points. Again, thank you very much for checking out my video, and I'll see you on the pitch.